Up here for a minute and just look out at everybody, so it's so good to see you. The problem is the feeling probably isn't mutual, but it's good seeing you. Tonight we have a very special program for you. One of the things we wanted to do this weekend was we wanted to give you the opportunity to experience and see real, shall we say, real live entrepreneurs. People who have started companies, who are hiring people, and are making a difference in people's lives. By making a difference in people's lives, I think of my own father who worked at the same, all his life he worked at the same place. Well, supported our family, put a roof over our heads. That made a difference in our lives. And employers are wonderful people. And we were supported for all those years by an excellent employer, for which to this day we're still grateful. Well, we wanted to introduce you to some gentlemen tonight and one lady who are working, making money, solving people's problems, and serving their neighbors. We'd love to have you hear from every one of them, and so we will ask them to come forward one at a time. We're going to find out what they do for a living. We're going to find out a little bit why they got to where they are, and then we're going to ask them a question or two about what they would say to today's entrepreneur. And we'll start with our very own Ken Souder. Ken, if you would come up, please. Ken, great to see you. We'll ask you, Ken, to sit on my right. I've always wanted to be this TV interview guy. It looks so cool. But no TV interview guy would hold one of these things, right? Yes. Flip, excuse us, okay? On the other side. I think my debut just got... It's over. Next. All right. Ken Souder is a member of the Mid-Atlantic Reformation Society Board, and he runs a financial advice business. Ken, tell me a little bit about your business, what you do.
I am a certified financial planner. I work with people one-on-one, helping them to become financially independent. That's basically what I do.
I just bought a bunch of penny stocks. Was that a good move? Just
I would not recommend that.
All right, good. And Ken, tell us a little bit about how you got into this business.
I kind of got forced into it. I'm not a risk taker per se, but the business I was in, which was in human resources in a local supermarket chain, was getting to be so pressure and so much stress. I said, I got to do something else. Somebody told me, look, you've got some skills in the area of accounting and that sort of thing. He says, why don't you consider starting your own business? Well, that was just horrifying to me to think that I would be in business for myself and not have a steady paycheck. But I started to move in that direction. I went part-time with the supermarket, took a demotion, worked part-time in my newfound business, which was income tax preparation. And slowly but surely I moved in that direction, and I ultimately cut ties with the supermarket and went on my own, and I wish I would have done it sooner because it worked out just fantastic.
So what happened was you used your job to support moving into owning your own business.
Exactly. I didn't just cut the ties and go out cold. I did it, little by little, knowing my nature. I'm not a big risk taker, and I was afraid, that it wouldn't work out. So that's what I did.
Well, tell us about the big $500,000 loan you got from the bank in order to get your business started.
I took no loans. I just simply worked very hard. I partnered up with another fellow, and we did seminars and that sort of thing. And, it's like farming. Sometimes you have good crops and sometimes you don't. So we just kept persevering, and one time we would have a lot of success. And that's one thing about being in business. You really never know what next year or next month or whatever is going to be. But I think the thing for me was partnering with somebody else.
Yep. Ken, tell us about a time in your business that you felt like you really, really helped somebody that really needed advice, didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they had some money, and you know what? You were there to help them out.
Well, this was I do two things. I help people on the offensive side, which is growing your money, and then the other side is insurance, which is protecting your money. So I had advised a woman to purchase long-term care insurance, and she bought a Cadillac policy, which covered unlimited days and zero elimination and all that. Well, it turned out she had Alzheimer's and actually used the policy and drew thousands of dollars from this policy. I had the whole family come in one day and just thanked me. And the whole family was just so thankful. That was the highlight of my career right there, because I really felt that I had served them well.
That's great to hear. Um, we have a lot of folks here considering the whole entrepreneur thing and how to become entrepreneurs. What would you want to say, one or two things, to anyone who is considering, branching out and starting their own business and as an attempt to serve Christ and serve their neighbor? What would you say?
Well, as I said before, I'm not a risk taker. I did it. So I would say if you have something that you're really passionate about, it could be even a hobby that you're doing now and you want to turn it into a full-blown business, I would say go for it. And that's just pretty much it. And be positive. My partners have no room for negativity. As soon as you start talking negative, you're really called out on that. So, and I have a great saying I heard, that the world doesn't end all that often. So, you've got people out there that are naysayers and negative. If you're that type of person, you're probably not going to be suited for business.
All right. Well, Ken, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ken Souder, ladies and gentlemen. Our next interviewee, an entrepreneur in a rather different business. Let's just say it's not exactly the financial advice business. Our next speaker has a different way of helping his neighbor, which is extremely important. I believe, and Martin Selbrady here can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe R.J. Rushdoony has stated that the difference between first world countries and third world countries is not electronics, it's indoor plumbing, I believe. I've thought about that, and I've been in third world countries, and they have electronics, they have a lot of cool things. They don't have indoor plumbing. Our next interviewee, where are you, Jeremiah? Come on up, Jeremiah Eldredge. All right. Yeah, give him a hand. Now on TV, they shake your hand. Yeah, there you go. Have a seat. Thank you. Jeremiah Eldredge. I've known Jeremiah now for about maybe 5 or 6 years, and he's passionate about his family business, and he works extremely hard at it. And it's a business I think you have to work hard at it, or you wouldn't be in it at all. Am I right? What's the business, Jeremiah? What do you do?
So we have a family septic service business in Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Family septic service business.
Yep.
Tell me about the day of a person in the septic business.
Well, believe it or not, it's a real need, especially in our area. We say that we keep, we promote health and we protect the environment with what we do. So that gives me purpose, when I go to work each day, and I try to pass that off to our employees, it's a real service we're providing, and we're doing real good for our neighbors.
Jeremiah, how many people do you hire?
It's about 12 of us.
About 12 people out there doing that work. Tell me about how you got into it, and if you could just talk to us a little bit about your family and the background there, who I believe was involved in the same business, how you got it handed down to you, and tell us a little bit about that transition, because I know it's a difficult thing, transitioning one generation to another. It's hard to do sometimes. Can you talk about how that worked in your case a little bit?
Yeah, so my grandfather started in 1958, and I guess there was a building boom, in our area. People were moving out from Philadelphia into the suburbs, and these homes needed, septic systems. They didn't have public sewer, so my grandfather bought a septic truck and started that way, and then just kind of built it up over the years. And there's more to the story than that, but as far as then his sons took it over, which was my one of them was my dad, and then ultimately I then have taken it over, and I have several children. We have nine children, but
How many?
Nine.
Okay.
9 children, but my 2 oldest boys. I've been thankful to it's been a great way to be able to work with them. It's a kind of business where there's a lot of hands-on work, and we're working in mostly residential situations, so it's not a big deal to bring your kids to work with you, and so that's been a blessing, and it's probably one of the things I'm most thankful for, that I'm able to have that opportunity in that way. And then we have some girls coming up, and they're starting to want to help with the bookkeeping and the filing and whatnot. So we'll see where it goes.
But your plan is, if you can, to pass that on to the next generation, if it'll work.
Yeah. So I've always thought about that. It's a good. It could be a good platform, for the future. I mean, I certainly wouldn't anticipate that, all of my kids would want to be in the septic business, but it's been a good, stable business that's provided, a good foundation that as our kids grow up, and I can notice they have different gifts and interests, it can be a way to kind of promote those gifts and those interests. So I'm anticipating, out of the 3-generation business that we have, that other businesses potentially could come from that. Maybe not related to what we currently do, but it's just a good foundation or starting point is how I look at it.
Jeremiah, as part of running a business, which you run, and you have trucks, you have lots of expenses, you have lots of challenges that you face. I want to talk to you about one challenge that you faced, and that was, if you'll tell us, since it's a family business, I believe you did one time your father worked for you, right? You're running the business and your father was working for you. Tell us a little bit about how that worked. How that works.
Yeah, so it worked well. So my dad just retired a year ago, and
couldn't stand his boss. No.
That could have been part of it. But we were.
He worked for you for a long time, I believe, right? Or
yeah,
with you, for you, whatever.
Yeah, I mean probably 15 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that for a father and a son to work together like that, there has to be a certain bit of humility, and we had kind of a common goal, a give and take. I think that if one person had a lot of pride and self-seeking, that it probably wouldn't work for very long. So I think both of us, were able to give and take in that way. I think one thing I can share, I probably didn't appreciate the differences enough. So maybe one piece of advice I would have is that if you do have a partner, to try to find out each other's strengths and really appreciate your partner's strengths. And use that to the advantage of the business. I don't think that sometimes you don't realize what you have until after your partner has retired, and because it's tough for one person to do everything that's needed, and so that's something I might pass on.
There. Well, thank you, Jeremiah Eldredge, folks. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next young man, Ryan Horst, has been involved in a few businesses in his life. I first got to know Ryan. Come on up, Ryan. When I was selling concrete. And Ryan used concrete, and I was a concrete sales guy, which made me a very interesting person to invite to your next garden party. Let's talk to the concrete sales guy. That should be fun. Can't wait. But I got to know Ryan then, and we got to be pretty good friends. Ryan, why don't you have a seat here? And I know how much you've been looking forward to this. Just love to speak publicly. Don't worry, it's only a few lights and 150 people. It's all right. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what business you're in now, and then can you also tell us about how you first got in business? And I'm very interested in the age that you were in when you first started. So if you could start with what you're doing now, and then we want to go with how you get started in business, which I know is not the same business you're in now.
Sure. Good evening, Ryan Horst. Currently, I have a tree service business. There are 5 employees besides myself and a receptionist, so I guess 7. What was the second part of
The
the
second was, how did you get started in
Yeah, so
business?
I was interested in investing and saving at a very young age. So at 14 years old, I had my first job at a little restaurant and saved every penny. So by the time I was 20, and before, I started looking for some investments, made some consultation with a few people. Some people are said, investment properties are great. Others advised against it. I chose to buy an investment property, a 3-unit, which settled the same month that I turned 20. So at 20 years old, a few weeks later, I bought a 3-unit property.
So you actually bought the property as a teenager and settled when you were 20.
Yeah, got under agreement, but
Okay.
yeah, the settlement took place a few weeks after my birthday.
Okay, and you did this on a waiter job?
Yeah, I did. I'm not saying I would advise it today, but I did not put much down, and I had saved up. This was a few years ago, 20 years ago. So I saved up some money, and I didn't have a ton, but yeah, I did it on a waiter's job.
Okay.
Even summers, I was working construction between school. So I did a lot of working and a lot of saving and extremely little bit of spending.
Okay. When I know that one of the things you wouldn't do in a restaurant, for example, is drink anything that costs money. Am I right?
Right. So in explaining how, budget conscious I was as a young teenage guy, when my friends would go out to eat, I would sit there and just order a water because I was like, man, I have to work an hour for this meal and get it for free at home, So I was extremely radical in my commitment to not spending money. And I went skiing, and I'm like, oh, I'm not spending $50 on a lift ticket, So I was extremely concerned with every dollar. Rightly or wrongly, I'll let you decide. But at the end of the day, I started investing as soon as humanly possible. Bought a couple more apartments later. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Okay, and you have another type of investment going, right? Tell me how many children you have?
We have 9 as well.
9 children.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's investing in another sense. Ryan, tell us a little bit about starting a business, quote unquote, from scratch. I mean, you had a business already, then you went in the tree business, which you had no special experience in, right? You went right in that tree business. What was that? What was that like? I mean, it's like I don't know, like a person in the sheet metal business going to the ice cream business or something. I mean, you had no experience in it. You had some capital from your other work. How'd that work out for you?
So it turns out the last part of the question, so far it has worked out well. A lot of people ask me why the tree business. Sometimes I can't really give them a great answer. But when I worked in an office for 13 years. Again, budget conscious, paid off some of my apartments in full, saved up some money, a nice amount of money before I was looking for a business to start. So I'm looking for a business that requires some capital. So in my own mind, again, just financially speaking, it weeds out some competition. If a business requires some capital, everybody out there is going to have to be charging in their hourly rate for a shop, for potential mechanics, for breakdowns, for the capital expenditures. So I was looking for a business that had a little more of that since I had it saved up and didn't have to get the loan from the bank. So anyway, I looked into some other options, and as it so happens, Joel's son-in-law was familiar with the tree business and was willing to teach me. So I actually, when we first started, Daniel Hinkle, he may even be here tonight, and I started off, and he taught me, the tricks of the trade, so to speak. And so I kind of went to the tree business route. It was one of many options because of the opportunity with a guy to help me get started with it. So,
What would you say to a budding entrepreneur today if you could just have one or two things to say to them? What would it be? Don't do it.
yeah, no. I would encourage it for sure. One thing I would caution, maybe don't underestimate the effort that it takes. I think a lot of people look at a successful business and the first thing to the mind is, man, that guy is making a bunch of money and he's got the life, but it takes some sacrifice. I sacrificed from the time I was young, and I put a lot of energy into the business, rightly or wrongly, maybe too much. You have to really balance that. I personally believe the reward is worth it and the risk is worth it, but I did also cautiously. I saved up, I waited, till I had some solid footing, and again, I'm not sure if that's starting off from scratch is great too. That's just how I chose to do it, and I don't really regret waiting. So far it's been working out, so we'll see.
Great. Ryan Horst, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. All right, our next entrepreneur is a young lady, Ruthanne Khoury. Where are you? On our way up. All right. Actually, one of you coming up is quickly enough, but two of you is a little more slow. Do what, January 30th?
December 30th.
December 30th, yeah. Just in time for that income tax deduction. Can you sit there, or are you okay there? All right, Ruth Ann. The reason why we have you up here, of course, is you are running a business from home, 2 children, 1 on the way. Tell us, how do you do that?
Do you want to know what the business is first?
Well, yeah, you can explain what you do. Yeah, why not?
I'm a reseller, which means I thrift for goods and resell them on the internet, eBay, mainly a website called Poshmark, and there are a few other ones. And how do I do it from home? Well, it's like in the year 2019, you can pretty much do anything from home. Well, not anything, I guess, but there are a lot of businesses that you can run from home, and this is just one of them. It's something that is mainly online. I do constantly have my phone on me, but it's nothing that's very involved, so I'm still able to pay attention to my kids and also run the business. So.
Okay, so can you give us a couple of examples? I mean, it doesn't sound real lucrative, buying and reselling. Tell us a little bit about how that works, and maybe you can give us a typical buy and sell price, and then give us maybe a crazy one or two, because I know you have some of those.
Sure. I mainly do clothing and shoes, so that is something that I was interested in. I actually kind of fell into it. Was just I was looking for a way to get rid of some old clothes, such as Old Navy and things like that. I had tried out a yard sale, couldn't even get 50 cents an item, and I thought, I can definitely get $4 for these at least. So I started selling on this website called Poshmark, and those items that I couldn't sell for 50 cents sold for $10. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'll get rid of some older clothes that I have. Those all sold, and I fell into this internet rabbit hole of people who were reselling. And they were actually doing it for a living. They would go to Goodwill, buy something for $5, sell it for $20, sell it for $30, depending on the item. And so I decided to try my hand at it. When I first started doing it for profit, I bought a $5 Banana Republic skirt, and it sold for $20. And I thought, I'm rich. I've made it. But the typical thing that I buy, I try to make at least 3 times my money. So if I spend $5, I would like to make a profit of $15 on that item, and that's typically what I do. A lot of my average sell price, or my average cost, is $5, and my average sell price right now is about $20 to $25. So that's the average, but there are a couple things, when you're up on the trends and when you're, paying attention. I don't know if some of you guys know, but 90s fashion is back in. I found a Tommy Hilfiger fleece.
Why do you think I'm wearing this outfit?
You look great. I found a Tommy Hilfiger fleece jacket at Goodwill. I paid $5.25 for it. It sold overseas to Norway for $215. So that was one of my big ones.
Didn't you tell me about a shoe thing you did a short while ago?
I did find a pair of Salvatore Ferragamo boots, which is like a high-end retailer. It was a recent pair of boots that was at Goodwill. It was on 50% off day, so I ended up paying $375 for those, and those did sell for $200 online.
Yeah. Obviously, it doesn't happen every day like that. What about your old inventory? I mean, you buy. What do you do with the inventory?
I do store it at home. So
Okay.
I have less. I probably have around 250 pieces of inventory that I keep, and I just keep them in bins in the house.
Okay.
They're
And so when do you work on it? I mean, when do you got to take pictures? You have 2 children. Do they take long naps? Tranquilizers? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So most of my work gets done during the kids' nap times and after they go to bed, because again, it is all online. So most of the work is able to be done during those times. Less than 3 hours a day, definitely. My husband also is helpful. Like, he will take the kids when I want to go thrifting. Sometimes I take them with me, with lots of bribes and snacks and things like that. Yeah, it's able to be done within. I mean, you could do less than 2 hours a day, probably.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. And can you tell us what you think you make an hour doing this? Do you think you have an idea?
I've never done my hourly rate.
Okay.
So I don't have a clue.
Don't have an idea. Okay. But I do know that you could, with doing just your business alone, most months you could probably at least pay your mortgage on your business.
Yeah. Most months if at the penny, sure, I could pay a mortgage, yes.
Yeah. All right. Good. What would you say to anyone that wanted to get into this type of work, or a work from home where you as a mom, wife, and mother can really help out the family finances? What would you say to anyone who had questions about that?
Yeah, like Mr. Souder was saying, if there's something that you've been interested in your whole life, maybe you wouldn't even realize it, but it could become something that you could make into a business. I used to always like going to Goodwill. That's how we grew up, going to Goodwill. We didn't really go to the mall very much. But I started to enjoy it and just shopping for myself. And I loved going to yard sales and things like that. I just never flipped anything for a profit. And when I fell into this, I was like, this is it. I love doing this. So it was something that I've always enjoyed doing, and so it was easy to keep it up and easy to maintain. Because it's not exactly, it can be easy if you only want to make a couple $100s a month, but there is, then you need to keep your motivation up if you want to keep making good money. And so to somebody starting out, first of all, is there anything that you're good at that you like doing that you could possibly turn into a business? That happens all the time with Etsy and just all kinds of things. You can make anything into a business. So I would say something that you enjoy doing, or you just have to be pretty motivated to make money to keep it up.
Okay. All right. Ruthanne Khoury, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sweetie. Can you get down? All right. Thank you. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. All right. Our next guest, Rob Monster. All right. I can't tell you the amount of companies Rob started, is president of, and has worked on, but Rob, thanks so much for coming. And thank you for coming all the way from Seattle, Washington.
Good to be here.
All right. I'm torn between asking the necessary questions and the fun questions. So I'll start with the fun questions. Rob, how did you get savaged on the Huffington Post? What did you do to deserve that?
Well, the background here is I run a company called Epic, EPIK.com. We're like a GoDaddy, registrar, host. When free speech became kind of objectionable to certain people, censorship kicked in a big institutional way.
we became kind of the registrar and host of last resort for lawfully engaged people who are simply engaging in wrong speak. So many of you are very familiar with the term wrong speak. And so we ended up basically taking the hit of being the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, when it came to censorship. So the intent there was to make it extremely painful for anybody who would try that as well. And so if you go to a Wikipedia article about Epic, you will find a very damning narrative. Well, that's precisely because there was a manufactured consensus among a variety of left-leaning publications, and then, of course, you aggregate that into some kind of authoritative statement. So what did I do? I supported wrong speak.
And that was that got you written up there. Rob, I understand that you've had a lot of, shall we say, challenges. I mean, you're a Silicon Valley guy. You're on the cutting edge of tech. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a Christian with not a nominal Christian, but a Christian promoting a Christian worldview at war with godless worldviews. Tell us a little bit about what that's like.
Well, I think that it is a leap of faith because the majority of the population thinks differently. I mean, let's face it, Bible-believing Christians are in the minority. There are nominal Christians, but Bible-believing Christians who walk the talk, and especially ones who've surrendered to the Lord's purpose, are an oddity. And there is a very vocal minority that is highly activated, sometimes on payroll, to working overtime to silence those types of voices. So I think the bottom line that I came to conclude by choosing this path of being a fearless participant in the digital playing field is to be authentic. So when you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you don't really lose your cool, right? You go back to Galatians 5, it's all there, right? So, and the essence of what the adversary will try to do is they'll try to basically make you angry or make you impatient, or they'll try to demonstrate that you're a greedy guy. Some type of thing that basically causes them to believe that you are not actually walking the talk. And this is right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. They've all read it. They all know it. Even if they haven't read it, they've been taught it. And so if you know their playbook, you see them. In fact, you can even call it out, right? There is a rule for radicals about making your opponent live by their playbook, right? So I call them out. Okay, that's, Alinsky rule number 4. Got it. All right, better luck next time. Good luck, bro. No, so you basically end up exposing them for being hive-minded and incapable of independent thought. And the thing that they hate the most is truth. So when they would sometimes engage me on public forums, I would drop truth bombs. In other words, they would like to engage you in a dialogue and make you look like an idiot. Well, that's your opportunity to show that you're not an idiot, that you are authentic, and oh, by the way, here's a little tidbit. And you send them down rabbit holes. And I did that prolifically in a particular forum called Name Pros. The opponent engaged me on a forum thread trying to basically vilify and discredit me. And I turned it into a giant Ask Me Anything. And it ended up being the most popular forum thread for all of 2019. And by the end of the forum, I'm kind of famous on this particular forum and have now parlayed that into an industry-leading position vis-a-vis thought leadership, right? But now also our business is growing 70% quarter over quarter in an environment where there are people who are actively not doing business with us because they think I have a conservative worldview.
A question I've had about what you do. You own various businesses, started various businesses. Tell me a little bit about your concerns about the future of free speech, and in our terms, Christian speech on the internet. We know that we're being shadow banned by the big guys all the time. Sure. Google. You do a search, you won't find. They'll shadow ban us. But you and I have talked before about beyond shadow ban, not even having a platform at all. Tell me, without giving away your talk tomorrow, Tell me a little bit about where you think that situation is.
Yeah, so I'll give a talk tomorrow. My talk is about finding your calling in the digital age. It's a bit of a personal narrative. I hope you'll come for it. I think you'll enjoy it. But the synopsis of what Joel's asking is a very pertinent topic for anybody who wants to engage in Christian narratives on the internet. The trend is towards deplatforming, which means to say that you lose your host or you lose your registrar. The trend is also towards shadow banning, where you might publish a tweet or you might make a post on Facebook, and all of a sudden nobody likes your threads, nobody likes your posts, and you're like, what in the heck? And YouTube, same thing. They'll delete likes and delete views, and they'll deprioritize you, or they'll just close your channel altogether. And so the remedy for that is decentralization. So the central thrust of what it is that we are getting behind in a very methodical way is decentralization. And that means to say, instead of trying to be YouTube, create 1 million YouTubes. So we took a technology called PeerTube, manifested it as us.tv. You can have your own .us.tv and have your own YouTube, right? So if you want to create content that basically annoys a bunch of people, you're now not putting everybody else's channel at risk, number one, but number two, you get to also set your own terms and conditions vis-a-vis terms of service, right? So decentralization is coming in various forms. Another technology that you might come across is called the Fediverse. The Fediverse, sometimes known as Mastodon as one flavor of the Fediverse, is essentially decentralized Facebook, Twitter. So the whole internet is federating. And the last category, which I'll touch upon very tangentially tomorrow, is the whole theater of so-called content delivery networks. The largest content delivery network company is Cloudflare. They have like a market cap of like 5-6 billion. They just went public. And they have like 1,000 nodes, 1,000 different servers or data centers around the world where content has been federated. Well, we're working on a technology that through an acquisition of a company called BitMitigate, basically will create 1 million nodes. In other words, hyper decentralization, hyper federation. And the net result is a resiliency that is unstoppable. Right?
Okay.
And imagine being in a community where you literally have the ability to peer-to-peer communicate. The end of the world stuff that people talk about, where you're going to go back to like ham radio and smoke signals. Okay, well, that's not exactly how it's going to happen, because guess what? You've got Wi-Fi, right? So high reach Wi-Fi can already basically cover an entire neighborhood. So why would you mess around with ham radio, right? So I think the direction that we're going towards is decentralization. Decentralization will have many flavors. The other area that you're going to see become very commonplace is encryption. There is already a category of encryption that is post-quantum. It is freely available, open source technology. Anybody can use it. So you'll have decentralized technology that is encrypted end to end. You will be able to engage in whatever narrative you want, and it will be unstoppable.
Wow. Rob Monster, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. I'll take this one down as well. Yeah. Don't you love that word? Everybody say it together. Decentralization. Beautiful word. All right, our next speaker is Tom Ertl, a friend of many. Come on up, Tom. Thank you so much for being with us here. Thank you. Tom Ertl is a gentleman I got to know through his writing, first of all. Is a house builder, home builder, if you will, in Florida. And is someone we just had to have at this conference because he has done an excellent job of using his talents and skills in the building business, again, to serve his neighbor with his hands, but then he also serves his neighbor through the through publishing. Tom, if you could just tell us how long you've been in business, how you got started, and then we want to talk about how that business now supports kingdom work, even though building houses, frankly, is kingdom work, but it's another type of kingdom work that you're involved in now. Tell us about your start, Tom.
Yeah, I'll have to narrow that down to 2 minutes on the start because there's a lot of things involved. But I was, and you would be familiar with this, I was a package driver for UPS for 12 years. The last 4 years of it, I decided I wanted to build a house for myself and my family. So I have no experience in it. I didn't know what I was doing. And so this is where the phrase comes, are you winging it? I did a lot of winging it in those days. But I got a banker to give me a loan on a personal house. And then so I did it, and working at UPS. So but this story is how a business starts. Many days I was there at 1 or 2 in the morning doing tile work and trim. I did a lot of my own stuff to save money. Of course, that then eventually, you hire everything out. So built my first house. That worked out well. We moved in it, and I was so exhausted because UPS, as you know, that's going to be 45, 50 hours a week. So then I had a rest up for 2 years and then started another one and then moved into that. Probably the last year at UPS, and I don't think my supervisors knew what I was doing, but I was I built about 5 houses, had a superintendent.
While working, you built 5 houses
yes,
while working at
right,
UPS.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
But this is the story of a life of a business guy. This is how you got to get started. And so built 5 homes, and I probably should have quit earlier, but I didn't want to give up that salary, and that dental plan was great. But Ertl Homes does not have a good dental plan, I can tell you that. So it's called pay. But so the last few years, I built the 5 houses, then I just made the bold move and quit. So I was at UPS for 12 years.
Okay. And
my UPS experience was, as all the drivers say, it was good getting hired and it was good leaving.
Yeah.
So both ways. But,
How many? I'm just curious. How many houses did you build while still working at UPS?
Well, that was the 4 or 5.
Oh, that was 4 or 5 total over the years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Well, yeah. Well, no, it was probably about 7, but it was 4 or 5 in the last year.
In the last year. Okay. All right. So then you're building houses, and then at some point, how do you get from building houses to get into the Christian publishing business? And I just want to say, folks, if you've heard of Pierre Viret, I really think you probably have Tom Ertl to thank for it. How did that happen?
Let me go back on your first comment. If you heard of Pierre Viret, you've probably had Rebecca Sheets to thank for it. I get the credit, and she'll get the blessings in heaven more than me, because she does a lot of the translating for all that. But so here's the thing. So I got converted at 18 years old through a Pentecostal group, the Milwaukee Jesus People, and from a Roman Catholic, immediately converted into Protestantism. So I think the best Protestant sometimes is converted Catholics, because we have a passion for the Word of God, passion for truth that we never received when we were Roman Catholic days. So then I got into reading, developed libraries, and a passion for publishing for books. So, and then obviously my faith got moved along very well by reading Rushdoony and North and Bonson and Chilton and DeMar and all the other guys we've read. So out of that, here's the thing in business. And every businessman has a choice, and that is, so what am I going to do with my business as a Christian? Am I just going to make money, provide a better living for my family, take trips, buy more expensive shoes, whatever? Or am I going to allocate some of those resources for the kingdom of God? And in my early charismatic days, I got saved through Pentecostals. In my early charismatic days, the charismatics taught you, even more so than Reformed faith, the importance of advancing the kingdom of God. They were real big into it. So that was part of my system. So what is it I can do beyond construction to advance Christ's lordship and kingdom and rule in the earth? So you look and you examine yourself, and I'll bring this up tomorrow in some of the talks, what is the passion God has given me individually? And then what do I need to do with it, and how could I advance the kingdom with it? So I went the publishing route, and I've got a great story. Can I save it for tomorrow?
You certainly may do that.
All right.
Yeah,
and a
absolutely.
Story of how through my trip to Switzerland, I was able to make contacts with the right kind of people by the providence of God, and got a hold of, I was really commissioned by somebody, and I'll tell the story tomorrow, to translate B-Ray and Cortial, and the other, which is the books out there on the Zerk publishing table. So anyways, to answer your question, it's basically, as a business guy, I think I just can't make a little money, have a better life, and leave it as that. I've got to do something with those resources. You know, here's the thing: when you grow up as a Catholic, very knowledgeable about hell, okay, and sin and all that. We got that down pat, better than the Protestants. So there's a consciousness always. All right, I'm concerned about my white throne judgment. All right, so we all laugh about it, but we all need to think about it. Okay, so the worry is, all right, Mr. Ertl, we gave you these gifts, we gave you these abilities, and what exactly did you do with it? Oh, well, I just built houses. Oh, that's it? And so you start thinking that through, and there's just something driven in me, and this is a lot of people here that are here, of I've got to use everything I have, resource-wise and ability-wise, to push and promote the kingdom of God beyond running a business. And that's really what a lot of my talks will be about tomorrow.
Looking forward to that. I've heard the story you're talking about, and you're going to want to hear this story. Trust me, tomorrow. One last question for you, Tom. If you had something to say to a budding, entrepreneur today, what would you tell him?
Oh, I would say, oh man, I would say two things. I think there's a phrase with millennials, work-life balance. So with an entrepreneur, it's a little different than that. It's like work, half a life, and no balance, especially when you start. And then you can take one of the four works off as you kind of go further down the line. But I would say, advice-wise, two things is start early. You know, we talk about, I did an article once on birth rates in Western civilization and the criticalness of women start marrying early and having their babies in their 20s. My mother had 6 kids. By the time she was 30, it was over. And so that's true in the business realm. My brother, who's in business, my dad was in business, he always tells people, start early in your 20s is the time where you have the strength and energy to put all these hours in to build something. Don't be taking trips to Australia when you should be putting that money into a business. So I would say start early and this is what if I would redo it again, I would say I needed to get more advice from older builders. It would have saved a lot of mistakes. Okay. And so start early, get a lot of advice and counsel, and go at it. And be prepared to work long hours in it. And this is my one final thing. This is why my oldest son is a dentist today, because he's seen his dad being a builder. And I got 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So I come to Matt at 13. I said, Matt, I want you to go into the building business with me. And, I mean, you could get a truck early. We could get you set up with rentals, and you could do well. And he starts tearing up. And I'm thinking, boy, what a great dad. I mean, I'm just unbelievable. And but I found out the tearing up was, Dad, don't make me be a builder. I don't want to live like you. And I sat there, and he walked out of the room. I thought, what is my life like? I mean, that he would say something like that. Well, he's seen the hours. He's seen the phone calls at night, the crises, the difficulties, and all that. So I come home one day, and this is another thought, is find out what your calling is and what you're good at. It may not necessarily be what your dad did. So I come home one day, and he's got 20 applications to dental schools on his bedroom carpet. So he ended up, he did this on his own. It wasn't me. So, and then he went to dental school. He got there a little late and passed, so now he's a successful dentist. But this is what he was really made to do. He doesn't have my personality of tolerance with people to be a builder. He would have lasted about 2 months. So, find out what you're good at and then go at it.
Okay.
All right?
Tom Ertl, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Ron Kronz is our next speaker. Come on up, Ron. I had an opportunity to minister with Ron. I've gotten to know him a couple of years ago. I first knew Ron at this conference 2 years ago, right, Ron?
That's about right.
Yes, and have since had the opportunity to minister with Ron in Africa. And Ron's a real missionary. And I was impressed with what he had to say to the folks. He has a real rapport with the folks there. But his story is not, well, it resonates because it's not one of, shall we say, riches to riches, right? Not hardly. Tell us a
So
little bit
many
about how
words.
you got started.
Yeah, not in so many words. By the grace of God, I was delivered from alcohol and drug abuse, narcotic addiction in 1985, in May of 1985. And then I got off to, I misspent a lot of my youth. So I really appreciated Mr. Ertl's comment to get us started as early as possible because I lost opportunities. But just aside from that, I mean, the Bible says that He will remove the years that the locusts have taken. So I still trust Him for that. But yeah, I came out of drug addiction.
Okay, and then you started a business. How do you go from, you became a believer and you started a business, I believe the tree business, I believe?
That's exactly right. I kind of went a different way from my colleague. I can't see him in the lights, but I just saved my money. I saved my money. I worked. I put together a couple grand, and then I bought a 1966 flatbed Chevy with no power steering and no power brakes, and I welded it together and just made it work.
And as you started the tree business, and how many employees do you have now, Ron?
Well, we have 7 now, and
Okay.
6 are professing believers, 5 are homeowners, and we have a traveling evangelist, activist who also works for us, who stays in one of those houses.
All right, now, like Tom Ertl, just before you use your profits, the money you make, and we've heard about profits and how they can be used. Tell us a little bit about how you're using your profits, what you're doing with them.
Well, I like to say that I was always looking forward to the kingdom of God. I was always thinking, I must press the rights of King Jesus into every affair, but that really wasn't it. I took the general approach, which was make enough money, get out. I interchanged the word escape and victory. And I believe that what my goal was is just to get through it, get my kids out of the house and safe and sound. And I was convicted of that about maybe 20 years or so.
What do you mean, like safe and sound? Like maybe they're not axe murderers and they have a nice picket fence and it's okay.
The world's view of safe
Yeah.
and sound. And I
Right.
was convicted by that. My wife and I simultaneously, maybe 20 years ago, were convicted of that. We realize, my wife Cindy, we realize that these are the very same things that unbelievers pray for. I mean, just go to your midweek Bible study. Or what are you praying about? Are you praying about what? Your job, money, finances, safety, security, blah, blah, blah. The same stuff that Muslims are praying about. The same stuff that humanists want. The same thing that every atheist want. And the Lord really dealt with me on that to raise the bar because He deserves more than that.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you made that switch. From let's say to the picket fence to the kingdom of heaven.
Well, it wasn't an epiphany in so many words, but a matter of stepping out. And I think you know that a colleague of ours, Charles van Veek, saw me doing men's ministry here in the United States. And he said, we really want to get you to Africa. I started going to Africa. And of course, that takes money. And so I started just funding our own missions, and then that developed into a whole organization that I wound up overseeing. I didn't set out looking for that. It just became what it was. So yeah. And then I guess it was about 6 or 7, 8 years, I don't know, it was a while ago, I got convicted again that I live in the United States, and I've been all over Africa, in Zambia and Zimbabwe, DR Congo, Nigeria, Cameroon, Burundi, Rwanda, South Africa, yada yada. I've been all these places, but I don't live in any of those places. I live in the United States, and the Lord has called me to do ministry here. And so then that also took a turn, and then the Lord began opening doors here. We started a home church, and I'm the pastor of a home church, and all of this kind of has been a walk of faith, as it were.
One of the things that I wanted to talk briefly with you about is this idea of missions and mission support. I grew up where you took a real small percentage of your church's budget, you threw it at this missionary $50 a month, another missionary $100 a month, and you had all these missionaries that you said you support at a small amount of money. I began to question that at some point, and then I began to read things in the Bible like Paul saying, you know that these hands have supported me and the people with me. Without going into the whole missions thing too much, it just seems like we're not really being effective missionaries right now. And I just, if I may just tell, I know I'm interviewing you, and I'm telling a story here real quickly. If I can be allowed to do this, I was with Ron and Charles in Zimbabwe, and I'm not sure what. I was with Charles in Zimbabwe, and you have the same message for the Zimbabweans as Charles had for the Zambians. And I know I've mentioned this, but I'll mention this very quickly. It was a different kind of a moment to be with a real missionary. It doesn't happen all that often, shall I say. And a local chief came up to Charles and said, hey, our village, we have problems and we need resources. Well, in Africa, resources equals...
Yeah, actually, I've had that discussion probably 1,000 times, so I don't even know which one you're talking about. It could have been any number of one, but resources are not the problem. You said it very well this morning in your talk. You talked about the effect of subsidizing, and then I think I heard Noah Sanders, is that his name, the farmer? He said, "There you are, sir." Yes, sir. I enjoyed that. He said in his talk, and you can straighten me out on this, that if we do not produce more than we use, we are relegated to begging and stealing. Is that about it? Yeah, I'm getting a solid yes. Well, that's very, very possible in the world of international missions, is we actually teach them to not produce. We'd say, look, we'll subsidize you because you poor dears, you don't have anything. You don't have, well, and I always ask them the same question. I have the credibility by being there. I've been there in gunfights. I mean, I've been in there in the heat of battle with these folks. I have a lot of credibility with them. Our car has been taken by child soldiers. I've been preaching when they were rioting outside. I have a lot of credibility with them. And I'll ask them this question: if that's so, that there are no resources, why are the Chinese here? There's no resources. What are they, sightseeing? They're not sightseeing. They're here because there are resources. But the Bible says that the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy will be put to forced labor. And so we play this out again and again. But what we'll call the ministry industrial complex, and I know this is off topic, but it's answering your question. The ministry industrial complex makes us to feel better about giving money to go and paint schoolhouses and these kind of things. And in fact, not to take this any further than it has to go, but I was talking to Mr. Celbriti earlier about the world of ideas. And when you give money, money can be misappropriated, but ideas can't. It's harder to misappropriate ideas, and that's where you find out where the power really is in the world of ideas. And as you know, we're having we're on the precipice of potentially major victories over there.
Yeah, I'd like to just wrap it up by just, if you could just share this, Ron. I saw the announcement coming from our friend Charles, and I know you have some contact with some Congolese folks who are really attempting to bring their country in a Christian direction. Would you mind taking a minute or two to tell us a little bit about that and what your hope is, and also what the pitfall is, as we've already seen in Zambia? Can you explain that a little bit? And before you do, I'm so sorry. I have to say this. I believe that this conference is more important than what we may think, because I really believe that the future of real missions is entrepreneurs. It's not career missionaries.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. That's right. I couldn't be more in agreement with you about that. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, that's been perennially at war, kind of off and on since they declared independence from Belgium around 1960. They have really lost millions of people, about half of them 5 years and younger. They're the ones who are the most vulnerable. In 1960, when they declared independence, a man by the name of Moise Tshomba declared independence from Congo and said, we want a Christianized nation. And so what happened is the world, led by the United States, sent the United Nations to break them. And they broke them. They attacked their hospitals. They attacked Red Cross facilities. They attacked civilians. They insisted that none of this was going on. We're just quelling the rebellion. And there were civilian doctors there. And these doctors said, well, that's funny because we're treating bayonet wounds to 6-year-olds from the United Nations. This is the Congo where I minister. Well, here's why I say all that. Is that now fast forward all these years, nearly 60 years, and there's a new president in the Congo, and he professes Christ. And now he's contacted one of my friends who's a big player in that very same Katanga province about organizing the Congo as a Christianized nation. Now, if you understand Congo, it's in the center of Africa. Why is that important? Because that will be a thorn in the side of every communist type of top-down power government in Africa. And the gospel will then come out of Africa. That's the idea. We're not trying to send the gospel into Africa anymore. We're trying to get the gospel out of Africa. And so I have the privilege of being in on those meetings. And so this is my appeal to you about that. Pray for us, because the world will yet be aroused again. They are not going to take it lying down. A Christian Congo will not be accepted by the world. They will be attacked. They will be seduced, and they will be physically attacked. And I'm going to pray that I'm going to ask you all to pray that our people stand strong in that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Ron Kronz, thank you for coming. And how about a big hand for all of our participants? Was that not worth more than 3 semesters of business school where you pay all kinds of money and get absolutely nothing? All right. Well, thank you very much for participating with us. I hope you don't mind if I just return a prayer for the Congo as we dismiss. Lord God, we know that the nations will bow before you, and that we are to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we are told that one day the coastlands will wait for your law, and that Ethiopia will stretch out her hands to you. We know that you will reign until you will have all enemies under your feet. Oh Lord God, we just ask by your mercy and grace that we would see that in Africa, and that this movement in the Congo would come to fruition, and that they would actually stand up against the wickedness of the United Nations and the communists in that area. Oh Lord God, you are a great king. We pray that you would smash your enemies, break the teeth in their mouths, and just destroy all those who would destroy your people. And may your work throughout the earth grow mightily. We are so grateful that we serve such a great king. May we serve him honestly and truly love the Lord our God with all our heart, souls, and minds. It's in the name of Christ we pray it. Amen. Thank you again. We'll see you tomorrow morning at breakfast. You are dismissed.